website-based support groups. She received her master's and specialist degrees from UF in counselor education. I'd then like to welcome Dr. Amy Pollak, a board-certified cardiologist and director of the Women's Heart Clinic at Mayo in Jacksonville. Her research interests include women's heart disease, peripheral artery disease, and preventive cardiology. She holds a BA from the University of Virginia and also completed her medical residency in cardiovascular medicine and cardiac imaging fellowship there. Last but not least, please welcome Sammy, who is a registered dietitian and co-owner of Dietitians of Palm Valley, which is a nutrition private practice in Ponte Vedra Beach, and also the official dietitians of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Sammy hails from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She went to Penn State, where she received her bachelor's in nutritional sciences and a minor in kinesiology. She has worked as a registered dietitian for over 5 years and specializes in nutrition counseling, motivational interviewing, corporate wellness, grocery store tours, and public speaking. Testing. Is it on? Yes. I'd like to start with Dr. Pollak and ask you if you have any tips. You know, these questions come up a lot about how we can improve our heart health as women and families in the community for ourselves and our families.
Well, great, that's a fantastic question. And I just want to start off by saying that I'm so thankful to be here. You guys have done an amazing job, and it's just such a special day. So it's wonderful to be part of this panel. And I'm going to get one of these throw pillows for my house. So these are great. So in terms of your answer to your question, I think the 3 tips would be to make one dietary change, to make one exercise change, and then to know your numbers. So just for the dietary change, how many of us know that there's some part of our diet that we want to do better? Right? All of us do. It's like flossing for me. I know that I need to do it, but with the flossing. So I think with the dietary changes, choose one thing: lower salt, more vegetables, or less of these simple sugars, the white breads, pastas, white rice. Choose one of those, make that change today, and let that change then grow. For the exercise, it's important just to be getting out there and doing some physical activity really every day. And the best tip I have for that is, if you think you have no time, and everyone here is super busy, but I'll give you an example. I'm on the inpatient service this week in the hospital, and I wanted to get up yesterday morning to exercise, and I didn't. And this morning I said, oh gosh, I've only got 20 minutes left. I'm not going to get a half an hour workout in. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it for 20 minutes, right? And so I think we have to be flexible and understanding with ourselves. If you have 5 or 10 minutes, get out there, make use of that time. And then the last part is knowing your numbers. We were doing some of the health screenings. It's so critical to know your blood pressure, to know if you're at risk for stroke or heart attack, knowing your cholesterol, your blood sugar, your weight, BMI. So those would be my 3 tips.
Thank you so much. Sam, obviously being overweight and obesity are huge problems in our communities. And that is affecting and impacting children and teens at younger and younger ages in America. I think it's 3 times the number now than it was in 1963. That is the rate of obesity. How would a parent balance teaching kids to eat healthy without creating an unhealthy obsession with weight and image?
Again, as Amy said, thank you all for having me. This is such an amazing opportunity to be a part of. I think when looking at that question, I want to focus on the last part of it, where it says, without creating an obsessive behavior around food and body image. How many of you enjoy dieting in here? Let's get a hand raised. All right, perfect. I'm done. No, just kidding. So I am a registered dietitian. I am not the food police, and I think in our culture, if a doctor says to you, you need to be a healthy weight, right? You need to go and lose weight. We get on Google and we say how to lose weight, and boy, do we find some fun stuff on there. And so when it comes to children, I think we need to, really shift that focus not weight, but behavior change, right? And so where do children learn their behaviors from? Their peers, right? Their parents, as well as teachers, and kids in school as well. But so if mom or dad hates their body, talks about how much they hate their body, restricts food groups, says you can't have cookies, cookies are bad, where do children learn that, right? And so it all stems from creating a very positive relationship with food, but also with their body, and focusing on behavior change. We never need to look at a child and point at them and say, you need to lose weight. They have a ton of growing to do. So really focusing on that behavior change, similar to like Dr. Pollak said, of let's focus on their hydration. Let's get them out and running around. Let's make sure they get breakfast in before they leave the house. We do not need to become obsessed with that weight, but more so look at it from a behavior change standpoint.
Thank you, Sam. I'm going to talk about stress. How many of you find yourselves to be overworked or too busy? Yeah, I thought so, not that many. The question is, of course, how does extreme stress affect our health? Michelle.
So, again, I'm so grateful to be here, and I love the knowing laughter that nobody in this room is stressed. We're talking about everybody outside of here. You know, just physiologically speaking, when we have acute stress, our bodies are so wonderful. It's such a gift that we get to have our heart rate increase, we get to have our digestion slow down, we get to have our breathing quicken, all to get out of Dodge, right? All to either fight or flee. That worked great when we were getting chased by bears back in the day. But the problem is our bodies are almost, and our minds are responding as if we're working among bears all day. And under prolonged stress, the problem is that when our adrenal glands secrete cortisol, which is that primary stress hormone, it interferes with our sleep, it messes with our concentration and our focus. And under prolonged stress, we oftentimes feel like our energy is just zapped. So we become less physically active. All of those things give rise to the opportunities to affect our heart, to affect our blood pressure. That's a statistic that's been around for probably the last 2 decades, that 70 to 90% of all doctors' visits are because of stress. As far as, you know, it's important to recognize our lifestyle behaviors, because we do a lot of numbing behaviors. And the problem with numbing our emotional distress is that we numb everything. And this is from Brene Brown, for those familiar with her, when she says, you cannot select what emotion to numb, we end up numbing all of it. So we're numbing our joy.
Thank you, Michelle. I think we'll probably talk about that a little bit after as well. Sam, I have another question for you. You know, something that many of us deal with and work and sort of struggle with is this thing called yo-yo dieting, right? We diet, we lose weight, we go off the diet, we gain the weight back. In this sort of merry-go-round of weight, how bad is that for your health? Can you say more for us on that, Sam?
So first, I know we all say we don't like dieting, right? We all agreed on that. How many of us have tried a diet before? Right? Okay. And how sustainable has that been? Right? And so weight cycling, what we were talking about a little bit of gaining, losing, then gaining more, losing, definitely has detrimental effects on our health. But I think we need to look at the root cause. Is the diet is the problem. It is not your body. The word calorie was created in the 1800s and had absolutely nothing to do with food. It talked about fueling a machine, and then someone said, oh, our body's like a machine. We need to fuel our body, and then it stuck. But yet now we're in a society that cuts calories. Some women are eating 1,200 calories a day. That is the average nutritional need for a 2-year-old. I want that to sink in. I hope all of you, you're probably over 2 years old if you're in this room, you need more than 1,200 calories. And I truly mean that. So again, coming back to, yes, weight cycling is not good for our body, but saying, okay, I'm going to ditch that diet mentality and learn how to fuel my body. And although I am a dietitian, I am absolutely human, and I always share my story. Shameless plug, pull out your phones and go on social media, look up Dietitians of Palm Valley. But on there, I do like to share that I've been in a much heavier body than I'm in right now. So I understand when a doctor points at you and says you need to lose weight, you have this urgency and you want to do anything to see that number move, but it all comes back to focus on behavior. Do not focus on weight.
Thank you, thank you. Dr. Pollak, a question for you. As women, we are supposed to have our first mammogram at 40, first colonoscopy at 50, that's not just women. Are there any baseline heart tests that we should have? And how do you know when we need one?
So that's a really good question. I think that everybody, men and women, should have their cholesterol checked, and that's something that may not necessarily track with diet. You may be exercising on a regular basis, you may be eating a great diet, you may be a normal body weight, and there may be a genetic reason for having high cholesterol. So it's critical to know what that number is. So that's an important test. I think knowing what the blood pressure is, as we spoke about, because high blood pressure is called the silent killer, because you don't know it's really affecting the body until you've either had it for such a long time or it's at such a high level that you're really acutely feeling poorly. And then in terms of other heart tests like EKGs or stress tests, that all really hinges upon if you're having symptoms. But I do think a preventative approach when you go in for your annual physical exam for blood pressure, weight, blood sugar, cholesterol, making sure you're not smoking or working on active smoking cessation is all part of that routine preventative approach. If you're having symptoms, it takes us down another path completely.
Thank you. Sam, one more question for you about diets. Again, you know, keto is kind of a fad now, obviously intermittent fasting, low-carb diets. What's your take on them and how really are they affecting Americans? And do you have a you kind of spoke to it already, but what do you think is the best and healthiest way to lose and maintain your weight?
So with the diets, I think you all really know my personal opinion on diets by this point, but enter any diet into the mix and it usually has restriction, deprivation, and cut something out, right? So let's use the keto diet as an example, which is not the heart healthiest diet. I think we can all agree on that. I know the American Heart Association has put out some great research that's really shedding light on that. The keto diet hasn't really been in existence long enough, and people haven't been on it long enough to really know the harmful health effects it is having. But we primarily on the keto diet will restrict carbohydrates. So I want you guys to think about a bow and arrow. If we hold up a bow and arrow and we pull that bow back and we say no carbs, no carbs, no carbs, no carbs, we get to a breaking point where we say, screw that, I want some carbs. And we let go and that arrow flies so much further than if we were allowed to eat carbohydrates. You guys have a wonderful lunch that was prepped for you today that had a nice heart-healthy grain, quinoa. We have chicken, we have vegetables, we have a great dessert too that includes fruit, but then also something sweet for enjoyment. When we talk about diet, the Mediterranean diet is, they call it the best diet, but really what it is eating everything. And I can't say that enough. Like people ask me all the time, what do you eat? Everything. I eat all foods, and it's learning how to pull that all together and build that healthy relationship with food.
Thank you. I'd like to go back to the topic of anxiety and stress, Michelle. One of the topics that comes up a lot is the increased incidence of anxiety, stress, and related issues and disorders even with teens and also in millennials. Can you tell us more about that and how we should manage that?
Sure. I think, first of all, the American Heart Association back, I think in 2013, did a study. It was 25 years to 74 years old of participants, it was 6,000 plus national representative participants. Followed them for 22 years, so it was a longitudinal study, and what it showed is that people that had high anxiety in that group were more apt to use, as I was saying before, numbing activities like smoking, possibly food, alcohol, drugs. So all of that, really gets in the way for us. And I think we are so big right now into multitasking. How many of you drive your car, and if you're not looking at your phone, you're almost bored? I mean, it's pretty scary that we feel like we need to be doing something else besides driving when we're driving. The idea of unitasking, the idea of us giving ourselves permission to slow down and to do one thing at a time. Sometimes it seems so novel. There's even mats, you can check this out, that I just came across on Etsy that says turn off your curling iron. We do a lot of things, multiple things when we're getting out of our house, and then we're worried at work that we didn't turn off something. So that's a brilliant little message from Matt's. But I would say, as far as tips go, one of the things that we're all doing right now is we are breathing and being able to practice and incorporate. If you have 5 minutes a day, 1 minute, 5 times throughout the day, to really focus on just taking some deep breaths, it is the most effective way that I know to slow down our central nervous system and to get our cortisol back to baseline, so then we can take on whatever else comes up, because something will. So being able to do that, and even in my practice, being able to let people know to, scale of 0 to 10, where are you on your stress? Where do you feel it in your body? Even that connects us more to the present moment. So.
Great, thank you so much, Michelle. Dr. Pollak, we all know that women can exhibit heart attack symptoms that are different from how men do. How do we distinguish between just being stressed to being really at risk of a heart attack?
That's such an important thing to be thinking about, because fundamentally we've been talking about stress and how that's really an inherent part of our lives. But I think in terms of those warning symptoms that really would prompt an evaluation, if you're somebody who has never had chest pain or pressure, some discomfort in the jaw, back, shoulder, and it comes on all of a sudden and it is intense, that should not be just considered to be anxiety. You need to get that checked out and make sure if that's related to your heart or not. Sometimes it's breaking out into a cold sweat, or even just this feeling of unwell that something is not right. And I find that women, like men, often are really in tune with their bodies. And so if I'm seeing a patient in the emergency room who says something does not feel right inside, and I really pay attention to that. So I think that the symptoms can be varied in addition to the chest pain. And in fact, when they looked at women who are presenting with an actual heart attack, 60% of the time, women will complain of chest pain or pressure. So the flip side of that is obviously that 40% of the time, when a woman is actually having a heart attack, she will not have chest pain and she will not have chest pressure. So that's where it's so important to pay attention to some of those other symptoms. I became a cardiologist in part because my grandmother had a heart attack the day I graduated from college, and her symptom was indigestion. And she had been having that symptom for years, and she was told by her doctor that she needed to cut down on spicy foods, lose some weight, take some Nexium, but really that was her age-old equivalent. And we've come so far since that time in acknowledging that indigestion can be a sign of heart pain for women. So you need to pay attention to the symptoms. And then the last part I'll say is that there's this heart disease is a very broad umbrella term that women can have symptoms related to their heart, not due to a heart attack related to cholesterol buildup. You can have a heart attack related to a tiny tear inside that coronary artery, a coronary artery dissection that happens in otherwise healthy young women who are very fit. And you can have an irregular heart rhythm that causes chest pain or a weakening of the heart muscle. So if you have either a gradual change in how you're feeling or an abrupt change with new symptoms, either one of those would prompt an evaluation.
Thank you. Before we close, I'd love to ask each of you what one piece of advice you might have for folks in this audience as they leave here today. Michelle, we'll start with you.
I think, going back to Sam's first question about how to help our children, to me, children are recorders for everything we don't want them to hear. And because of that, I think we can start by speaking with the utmost respect and kindness towards ourselves, about ourselves. And that's something you can do the second you walk out of this room today.
Thank you. Sam?
I think I'm going to bounce right off what you're saying. When I work with clients one-on-one, one of the first things I'll talk to them about is things that you're saying in your head about your body. Would you ever say that to your daughter or your mother or your sister or your girlfriend? Probably not. If the answer is no, we shouldn't be saying it to ourselves. So from a nutrition side, yes, of course, there are some things we can do, but mending a relationship with ourselves, our own body, and also food. Just looking at food as equal, understanding that everything fits in moderation.
Thank you. And Dr. Pollak?
So I'm also going to play off, because I love the panel group that here, because I think that the stress reduction, eating heart healthy, ties in obviously your long-term cardiovascular risk. And we know that when you're under stress and you have that higher level of cortisol, most of us are then going to want to crave those sugary, salty, fatty foods. I don't like fried chicken, but when I was in med school and I would be under stress for an exam, there'd be a fried chicken restaurant. I walked by it every day. And it was only when I was under stress, I was like, what's that smell? So I think by focusing on stress, a healthy diet, we're going to be able to have that end effect of leading longer, healthier lives free of cardiovascular disease.
Oh my goodness, thank you all so much. Would you all join me in thanking this panel?